It was almost midnight when Anna, a 29-year-old biologist, decided it was time to confront the fear that had haunted her since adolescence. The small town she lived in always had a legend about the old abandoned house on the shores of Lake Serrano, a place surrounded by mysteries and dark tales. They said no one who entered there ever returned the same, and some never returned at all. Anna never believed these stories, but that night, driven by a mix of skepticism and curiosity, she decided to prove that it was all just old superstitions. With a flashlight in hand and her heart pounding, she walked toward the house, ignoring the footsteps echoing behind her. The house was a centuries-old construction, marked by the wear of time and the deep scars of past storms. Broken windows, doors creaking in the wind, and a constant feeling of absolute abandonment. Anna felt the air change as soon as she crossed the rusty gate, a cold, damp mix that seemed to drain the strength of anyone who dared to approach. As she entered the property, her eyes had to adjust to the gloom, and her breathing became irregular. Each room seemed to tell a forgotten story, with dusty furniture and old portraits that seemed to watch her silently. The silence was broken only by the distant sound of the lake water hitting the shore's rocks, but something in that place made even the wind seem to whisper forbidden secrets. In the main bedroom, Anna found an old diary, hidden under loose floorboards. The yellowed pages revealed accounts of a man named Eduardo, who had lived there more than 80 years ago. He described encounters with an entity that inhabited the lake, a presence that sucked the souls of those who dared to defy its abode. Eduardo said the entity took the form of a distorted reflection in the water, a being that could assume anyone's appearance to lure its victims. As Anna read, she felt a mix of dread and fascination. She couldn't deny that those words stirred something within her. And then, suddenly, the flashlight went out. Panic began to set in, but the young biologist tried to remain calm, remembering the equipment she carried in her pocket: a lighter, a small knife, and her cell phone with low battery. The darkness seemed alive, as if it were a shadow capable of swallowing everything. Anna tried to turn the flashlight back on, but it was in vain. In the oppressive silence, she heard footsteps, slow, dragging footsteps, coming from the hallway behind her. Trying to control her fear, she began to walk toward the exit, but she felt something accompanying her, an invisible weight pushing her against the walls, making her escape difficult. When she finally reached the front door, it swung open by itself, with a bang, revealing the faint moonlight. Anna ran without looking back until the moment she felt a cold hand grab her ankle, almost making her fall. With a stifled scream, she managed to break free and cross the gate, feeling her heart almost explode in her chest. That night, she knew she had crossed a line that could not be ignored. Something was connected to that house and that lake, and she had awakened a presence that would not rest easily. In the weeks following that terrifying night, Anna tried to resume her routine as an environmental biologist, studying local fauna and collecting samples from Lake Serrano. But the shadow of that house and what she had felt inside never left her. Her mind filled with doubts and images she couldn't explain. Distorted reflections in the water, whispering voices that seemed to call her name, and a constant feeling of being watched. One night, while analyzing aquatic fauna records in the lab, her computer crashed on its own, displaying an image of the old house, now with a dark figure in the lake's reflection. Anna felt a chill run down her spine and knew that something had crossed the veil between the natural and the supernatural. Determined to better understand what she was facing, she sought help from an old town historian, Mr. Mariano, 68, who dedicated himself to collecting accounts and documents about paranormal phenomena in the region. He told her a story that was not in the official archives. The house had been built over an ancient indigenous crypt, a sacred place where rituals were performed to protect the community against evil entities. However, as the years passed and ancient customs were forgotten, something had been awakened in the depths of the lake. Mariano warned Anna that this entity was not just a creature of folklore. It was a malevolent consciousness capable of manipulating memories and emotions to imprison its victims forever. As Anna pondered this information, she began to notice changes in herself. Her dreams became vivid, filled with disturbing images. People she had never met, trapped in ice prisons beneath the lake's surface. Voices begging for help, and a growing sense of anguish that seemed to drain her own energy. One of those nights, the phone rang unexpectedly, and a muffled voice whispered her name before the line went dead. Anna realized she could no longer escape what had begun. The entity was entering her world, one step at a time. It was then that she decided to return to the house, armed not only with her flashlight, but with recording equipment and protective gear she had researched with the historian. She wanted to document what was happening, but primarily to find a way to close the portal she felt was open between the lake and the house. Upon re-entering, the atmosphere seemed even heavier and more oppressive, and the walls seemed to pulsate with a dark energy. In the room where she found the diary, Anna noticed recent marks on the wood, as if something had scratched the surface trying to get out. Her breathing quickened, and in the gloom, figures appeared and disappeared, whispering, "Secrets no one should ever hear." At this moment, Anna decided to share her story with you who are watching now. If you're curious and want to understand the darker details of this story, subscribe to the channel to follow the unfolding of this mystery. Here, every account is a door open to the unknown, and your company is essential to unraveling the darkest secrets. And tell me in the comments, if you've ever felt something inexplicable or had a strange encounter, how would you react if you were in Anna's shoes? Share your experience or even a theory about what this entity might be. Let's create a community that not only watches, but participates, feeling the weight and tension of these real and intense stories. This greatly helps keep the channel alive, and also makes the content closer to all of us who seek to understand the invisible. Anna felt her body growing heavier, as if the very air of the house was trying to trap her there forever. The hours dragged on as if they were in a different time, a time governed by a force she didn't understand, but knew was too dangerous to challenge carelessly. The flashlight in her hand trembled, casting dancing shadows on the walls, while the voices from the lake echoed in her mind, a mix of pleas and veiled threats. The old diary, now her only guide, mentioned a sealing ritual that needed to be performed before sunrise. Otherwise, the entity would emerge with full force, and Anna knew she wouldn't have another chance. She tried to focus, reading the pages, with a trembling hand, each word seeming like a spell capable of trapping or freeing her. As the old living room clock marked the hours, a horrible sensation overcame her. Something had crossed the line between worlds, and she wasn't alone. An icy breath brushed her neck, and an invisible presence began to circle her, drawing closer and closer until she felt icy fingers try to grasp her arm. It was a quick instant, but enough for her to almost lose control. The house seemed to breathe with her, its creaking and popping sounds merging with her own racing heartbeat. Determination seized Anna. She had to finish the ritual no matter the cost. The diary's words required a symbolic offering, something that represented the purity of life, to seal the rift in the lake. Anna, who had always had a deep connection with nature, took a small aquatic plant she had brought for study and placed it in a circle of salt drawn on the floor. The silence that followed was terrifying. It was as if time had stopped to observe what would happen. Then a wave of energy seemed to vibrate in the air, and the nearby lake appeared to calm, as if the water itself recognized that gesture. But the entity did not disappear. It merely retreated, promising a return. Anna felt that this battle was just the beginning of something much larger. and that the house, the lake, and the history of that place held even darker secrets that needed to be revealed. It was as if that darkness was connected not only to the past, but to the future, threatening to expand beyond the borders of the small town where it all began. If you're already gripped by this story, trying to understand what happened to Anna and what the lake hides, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next chapters of this fascinating mystery. Also, I'd like to hear your opinion. What part of the story impacted you the most? Do you believe the entities described have any connection to real events that have happened out there? Leave your thoughts in the comments, because here, every interaction is not just a number. It's the foundation for us to build a community of curious and courageous people who face the inexplicable together. Let's chat, exchange ideas, and create a space where fear and mystery are unveiled with respect and attention. Anna could barely believe what had just happened, but she knew the real challenge was yet to come. As dawn approached, the air grew heavier and more oppressive, as if the very atmosphere was a prelude to the entity holding one last trump card to try and trap her forever in that forgotten place. The lake, now seemingly calm, hid a latent fury, a silent promise that the pact between life and death would not be fulfilled without more pain. She walked slowly through the old corridor of the house, feeling its presence in every shadow, in every sigh of the wind that swept through the broken windows. The diary pages seemed to burn in her hands, as if that forbidden knowledge was both a curse and a blessing. Anna knew that the secret to survival was not just in protecting herself, but in unraveling the origin of that entity, in understanding why it clung so fiercely to that forgotten corner of the world. Amidst the darkness of the basement, Anna found an old wooden box, covered with symbols she didn't understand, but which she felt held the key to liberation. Carefully, she opened the box and revealed a set of objects: a rusty locket, a piece of fabric that smelled of damp earth, and a letter yellowed by time. The letter contained the story of a man who had attempted the same ritual, a man marked by despair and loss, who had sacrificed everything to prevent the curse from spreading. But his fate had been as tragic as Anna's own. The sun began to rise on the horizon as Anna recited the last words of the ritual, feeling the locket's energy pulse in her hand. A boom echoed across the lake, and an intense light enveloped the house, as if an invisible barrier was being erected to separate the worlds. Anna fell to her knees, exhausted but relieved. She knew that for now, that darkness was contained, but the battle against the unknown would never end. There would be other places, other stories, other shadows waiting to be discovered, and here our journey ends this time. But I want to know from you, what did this story awaken in you? Have you ever had an experience that challenged your understanding of reality? Share it with us in the comments. Your story could be the next one we explore together. If you like this video, don't forget to give it a like and subscribe to the channel to become part of this community that faces mystery with courage and curiosity. Your presence is essential for us to continue unraveling what lies beyond the veil of normalcy together. Until our next encounter, and remember, not everything that seems dark is evil. Sometimes it's just the shadow of truth wanting to be revealed.